Hello everyone, I'm Camithar and I decided to participate in the Mermay challenge this year. For anyone that doesn't know, Mermay is a challenge where you draw a mermaid every day for the whole month of May. Many people will participate in Mermay for a various amount of reasons. For me at least, I did it so I could practice consistency in drawing a mermaid every single day. Now there is a prompt list for Mermay on the official Mermay Instagram page, but I decided I was going to follow a prompt list by ChewBB on Instagram because I just liked their prompts a little bit more. Now I did participate last year in Mermay, but I stopped halfway through for various reasons.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Now I just want to go through the different prompts that I did the whole entire month and touch on a few that I really liked and some of the ones that I felt I could have done better on. Now I did definitely start a little bit early because I was just really excited about starting Mermay and the fact that I really wanted to finish it this year. So I went ahead and started a day early on the first prompt, which was dreams. I'm going to show it up on the screen here, a little time lapse of it. Now when I was going into this prompt, I really wanted to stick with the purple yellow palette, not just because they're very nice complementary colors, but because they made it feel like she was a little bit more dreamy, which is what I was going for. Now when I was adding the little details like the crystal ball, I really didn't have any idea about what I wanted to put into it, so I just put like her sitting there with legs. Maybe she's dreaming of having legs one of these days. I also spent a lot of time playing with a lot of the different blending layers. As you can see on the little shirt she has there wearing, I started really experimenting with the overlay layer to see what it could do to the different colors, and I found that it made some really nice greens and blues pop out where I wouldn't have normally put them. Now on to day 2, the prompt was mirror, and so I decided to take this chance to play with the symmetrical tool in Clip Studio Paint to see how it works and how easily I can make this piece. And obviously I had to go for the good and evil theme because I really wanted to play around with the red and blue colors and make it look like the mirror is like shining out at them. I just thought it was a really cool idea to lean into. Now on to day 3 is when things started to get a little bit troubling. I decided I was going to do something a little bit more creepy. I really didn't want to make something pretty. Sometimes I just feel like I want to make a really creepy picture, and I think I kind of failed with this one. I feel like the skull and the bones in this really fell a little bit short of what I wanted it to be, but I still think I got that creepy, eerie effect with the black background and the lighting up tail. Now on to day 4 was mineral, and on this particular day I really didn't feel like drawing, so I kind of slacked when it came to drawing the crystals in this piece, and instead I opted for harder lights and shadows, which is what I don't normally do. I usually try to aim for a more blended look, but today I really wasn't feeling it, and I just decided I'd go with the harder lights and the harder shadows just to finish off the piece and move on to the next one. Now this next piece is one of my least favorite pieces of the whole entire month. There's a few others that take the number 1 place of being the most disliked, but this one in particular I felt like the design, the colors, the outfit just really didn't mesh well together, and I also really didn't like the prompt, which was insect. The first thing I thought of was like putting pincers into her head, and I tried to make her look kind of cute but deadly, and I think it just fell really short of what I wanted it to be. And now the hair in particular I think fell the worst. I just really slacked on the way the hair looks. I just felt like I could have done a better job and piecing out the hair and adding lights to make it look a little bit more interesting instead of this blob that's just sitting behind her. And another thing I don't really like about this piece as well is that the pose feels very stiff, and I really hate what I did with the hands, which is a common theme in this whole entire month. I always find that it's really hard to place the hands and the arms where they don't look awkward. Enough on that one. Now I'm going to move on to the next one, which was number 6, and the prompt for it was healing. This particular one I was really feeling like I could challenge myself and try to do a bit of perspective. Maybe try to do a picture where she's like looking down on you and she's there to help. But in the end, I think I should have used a reference. I really don't like the way it came out. I feel like she looks a little bit too warped and awkward in this particular pose. And another thing is that I found that the colors are really hard for me on this particular day. I find that it's really hard to make my colors feel cohesive if they're not like right next to each other. It's just really hard to find a really nice color mix. Even though I did try to use yellow and blue and green, they still feel like they were too separate and harsh for the eye in particular. And another common theme you'll see in this is that I have a really hard time deciding on what these mermaids should be wearing. And then again in this one, I feel like the shirt and the bra and the netting around the tail really don't suit the character and just help pull down what could have been a nicer piece. Now on to day 7 is the prompt animal, and I found that I tried to go with a animal head, and then I realized that I've never drawn an animal head before, so I scrapped it and just gave her horns. I know it's a little bit of a cop-out, but I just felt like I shouldn't try to push myself too hard, because the day before I was feeling really bad about what I created, so I decided to go with something a little bit more familiar to draw. I've drawn lots of horns on characters before, so I decided it wasn't too far off from the prompt animal. I also decided to give her a bucket. Maybe she's carrying around a bucket of milk or water, I'm not too sure. And then to fill up the page or the piece a little bit more, I decided to make her hair move off to the left, because I felt like it was too much wasted space if I didn't. I also gave her quite an angry expression, like she's maybe part bull or cow and she has a bit of a temper. It also gave me a chance to explore the angry facial expression a little bit more, because sometimes I get caught up in the routine of just drawing someone looking at you without much of an expression. That's all I have to say about that one, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to day 8, which the prompt was time. I decided, since I had such issues with the composition day before, that I was going to go ahead and close up on the face and just add bubbles to allude that she's a mermaid under the water. Tried to make her look a little bit more childlike and gave her a expression like she's excited to be looking at this hourglass. Then to keep things soft, I decided to go with a really soft blending method to make her look even more soft and cute and childish. In the end, even though I didn't spend as much time on this one in particular, I still really like how it turned out. I love the yellow and the purple that I used in this piece, and the glowing effect for the eyes and the hourglass. I just think it looks really cute and nice. Now the next one was day 9, Spirit. I really didn't like how this piece came out in particular, because by the time I had finished the piece, I realized that I hadn't really fulfilled the prompt spirit, so I had to go ahead and erase a bit of it to make her look more like a ghost, which I was really sad about, because I spent a lot of time adding a little wavy tail at the bottom, and most of it got erased out at the end. And this particular day, I think I actually really liked the top that I put on her. I made it kind of curly to match the tail, and you can kind of see it in the end version, but it's still slightly erased out. And there's 2 other things I didn't like about this piece as well, is that the hair feels a bit too stiff. It doesn't feel like hair to me, and that the hands feel very stiff. I wish I could make arms not look so unnatural. However, I do think that the colors were done justice in this piece than the earlier Mermay pieces that I did, just because the yellow in the hair looks really nice next to the purple shadows I put there. I also really like the tint of green that I chose for the tail. I think it just all meshes really nicely with the whole entire piece. Now on to day 10, the prompt was nature, and I actually really like how well this one came out. When I'd done this piece at first, it had been my favorite that I had done the whole entire month. Mainly because I use mainly yellows and greens to really make the character more cohesive in the color scheme. I also like that I used reference for the kelp and really added it into this character design. I like how cheery and happy she looks. Like, she just looks like a little ray of sunshine. You can just approach her, which is what I was really going for with this character. I also took out the time to make sure that all the muscles on her were really nicely developed and paid extra attention to the expression to really push that she's such a friendly character. Now on to the few things that I don't like about this piece. I feel like I could have made the pose a little bit more dynamic and not so stiff, which is still a common theme for me even after this challenge, but in this one in particular, I feel like the arm is too straight on the left and a bit too boxed out in the other hand. I also feel like I could have spent a little bit more time developing the background. However, I was running out of time at this point, so I figured I could just finish it up and go ahead and post it. Now for day 11, I was having a little bit of trouble creating these pieces because I had used an older tablet to make them while I waited for a new tablet in the mail. I found it incredibly difficult to do line art on this tablet and as well blend my colors because the pen pressure just wasn't as good on this one, and I found it a lot more difficult to create this piece. Anyways, enough excuses. Day 11 was love, and I decided I was going to go for a nice Siren look. I decided to give her an evil, seductive look and a little hand saying come here. I also liked the top that I was able to create here. I really started loving the little ruffles on the sleeves, especially from the day 9 spirit prompt. As you see, I'll keep using this ruffle sleeve because I find it really easy to create and I feel like it really adds something to most of these mermaids. I also decided to add a little bit of backlight from the moon in this picture because I felt like it'd be a fun way to add lighting to this character who's out on the ocean. I also feel like the cool lighting in the moon really adds a creepy atmosphere to this picture that I really like. Now on to a few things that I don't really like about this piece. I really feel like the tail in the background could have been better, and obviously the hand in the front, I should have definitely worked on it a bit more. However, I was running out of time and decided I was just going to finish it and go ahead and move on to my next piece. Now for day 12, I was actually really excited to do this piece, and it's just unfortunate it didn't come out the way that I wanted it to. I found it really hard to make the electric lighting look realistic and convincing, so I actually had to do this piece twice, and I'll show the original up on the screen now versus the one that I actually posted on Instagram. I found that drawing the muscles on this character in particular was really hard, and something that I could improve on in the future. They look really awkward and bulgy and just something I'm not really proud of. And I'd say there's pretty much nothing I really enjoy about looking at this piece. I feel like I need to improve in every single aspect of this picture. I was just really disappointed with how it came up, and it's definitely one of my least favorite pictures that I created this month. On to day 13, I found that this one was a little bit better than the day before. However, I still have a lot of things I don't like. For example, I really don't like how the fire doesn't look too convincing, or the expression on this mermaid's face. I also really don't like the color scheme I decided to go with. I feel like I should have gone with something a little bit more saturated and a little bit more punchy to really make her pop. Now, I do like the dramatic lighting I was able to get with the flames in her hands. I like how it's pitch black everywhere else and it's just lighting up her face and her hair. However, everything else in this piece, I feel like I could have done a little bit more if I just put a little bit more time into it. Like the skirt and the bra and the tail could have been better if I just put a little bit more detail into it. I'm definitely not mad at this piece though, and it's definitely an improvement from the day before. Now on to day 14 was the prompt Psychic, so I decided I was gonna have a close-up on this mermaid holding this psychic ball and closing her eyes to make her look really mystical and like she's concentrating really hard on something. Just like the day before, I decided to go with a lot of dramatic lighting, mainly lighting up the face, the arm, and that small side of the body. I also like the little added detail there of the tail to make it look like she really is a mermaid that's being lit up by the darkness. And overall, I think this is definitely a stronger piece than the last couple of days. Now on to day 15, I was really excited about this piece because I was able to go with a fully green theme, really make my colors nice and cohesive. And on this particular day, I was able to spend a little bit more time on this prompt, which I'm really happy I was able to, because the face looks really nice and sharp, really pointed and evil looking. And I was able to further accentuate that by adding smoky hair in the background, made it really pointy and really helped make her look a lot more evil. Now, a few things that I don't like about this piece is that I feel like the smoke in the background could have been done and rendered a little bit more. And I also don't like the hand that's holding the potion. I feel like I should have used a reference for that to make it look more natural and not so awkward looking. Now for day 16, the prompt was water, and I really wasn't sparking any ideas with this prompt, so I decided just to go with any pose that I could come up with and just try and make it look like she was a water mermaid. So to make this mermaid feel like she's a water mermaid, I decided to make her clothes look like they're made out of water instead of just a normal t-shirt. And then to go with a little bit of the awkward pose that I decided to give her, I decided that I was going to add pearls to her hand, add a little bit of a story where she's looking down at them like they're maybe broken. And I feel like that just adds a little bit more to the character. Now on to day 17, I was actually really excited to do this piece because the prompt was metal, and the first thing that came to my head was armor. So to fit this theme, I decided I was going to go with a warrior mermaid. She has a spear, her helmet's flying off, and she's swimming towards battle. I also got a little bit of inspiration from Pinterest. I decided to find a piece of armor that looked really nice and to add it to her character. And I think the design came out really well. The only thing that I would have changed, if I could change it now, is to add a little bit more saturation in the shadows, as I feel like she turns a little bit grey around her tail. Now on to day 18, the prompt was cosmic, and to tell you the truth, I really didn't have a lot of time to do a piece that day. So I went with the simplest thing I could think of. I went for a really purple color scheme. I went for dramatic lighting because it's easier to finish the piece that way, and I also went for a very symmetrical pose so I wouldn't have to draw two hands. And even though I didn't have a lot of time to make this piece, I still feel like it came out really well. I think the simplified ideas really helped keep this prompt simple and easy for me to finish. Like, I think I finished it in maybe an hour and a half, which is really short for me. Most of these other prompts took me anywhere from 3 to 6 hours to create, and I'm just really happy I was able to create something so quick that still looked okay in my eyes. Now on to the next couple of prompts that I did. You can start to tell that I was really starting to get bored of the prompts. I was really having trouble to get over the hump and just finish these pieces because I felt that the prompts weren't interesting, and I also didn't feel like drawing this far into the mermaid prompt or challenge. It just was really hard for me to finish these pieces. Now for day 19, the prompt was light. I don't have a lot to say about this piece. I feel like the pose is really stiff. She looks really awkward. She looks a little bit bored in my opinion. I just feel like a lot of stuff went wrong with this piece that could have been done better. But my main gripe with this is I feel like the colors weren't saturated enough. I was running into the same problem as I had before in a few of the other prompts, and no matter how many filters I put on it or any corrections that I put on it, it was still looking really dull and grey, and I definitely think that I figured out how to make it look a little bit better in the pieces that I did after that. But this one in particular was really disappointing to me. Now, number 20, I decided to go ahead with a little bit of perspective because I was feeling a little bit down from the piece before, like I could do better. I could push myself a little bit harder to do something a little bit more interesting than what I had done earlier in this month. So I decided to go with something a little bit more scary. I decided to give her a perspective like she's being pulled down into this dark abyss. I feel like this perspective was a little bit better than the day 6 healing prompt that I did, but I still didn't get the dramatic effect that I'd wanted originally with this piece. I wanted it to be more towards the camera, but I found out that I was having a real hard time getting it to line up correctly, so I decided I was going to do one that was a little bit away from the front of the camera, a little bit pushed back a bit more, and not such an extreme perspective. I decided to give her a little bit of a scared expression, even though now that I look at it, I feel like it could have been pushed a little bit more. She doesn't look as scared as I would want her to look, even though I'm still overall happy with how it turned out. The colors were a lot better than the day before. I made sure that the color palette was cohesive, mainly blues and pinks right next to each other on the color wheel, and I decided to make sure that all the shadows were really saturated so I don't get that awkward grey look in my pieces. Now on to day 21. The prompt was Earth, and I'm telling you, I was not having a very creative day that day. I didn't want to draw. I didn't want to draw another mermaid. I didn't feel inspired to draw something, so her pose came out really boring looking. It looked really flat, and even the expression on this character makes it look like she was really bored, which is such a shame because I feel like Earth, I could have done something so much more interesting than what I did, so I kind of kick myself for not trying to push myself more that day. But I find that if I push myself too hard that I tend to burn out and not want to stop. And the point of this challenge was definitely to just get through every single prompt that I could and make sure I made it to the end of May. Yeah, this was definitely one of my less favorite pieces of the month, but I'm just happy I was able to create it and move on. On to day 22, the prompt was lava, and I was really excited to create this piece because I was really inspired looking at Pinterest. I saw someone had created a lovely lava mermaid, and I wanted to take the inspiration from that and incorporate it into this character. So I decided to give her smoky hair and to make the molten lava rocks that are on her shoulders and around her body into like a little dress, make her look a little bit royal. And then I decided to give her a little smirk like she's looking down on you. I thought that was really fun, bit to add to the character. Now on this day I definitely tried to create a background for this, but because I don't practice painting backgrounds, it was really turning out really bad and I didn't want to include it, so I decided to opt out of the background and just make the character more center focus on the composition. And I'm glad I did that because otherwise I would have been really frustrated with the background and I might not have finished the piece. Now on to day 23, the prompt was radiation, and I couldn't think of anything but Chernobyl for this, so I decided I was going to go with the mermaid picking up a bit of uranium with some tongs and a little radiation suit. I thought it was a little bit on the nose, but it still worked out in the end. Now, if you can't tell, I was definitely having another day where I was just burnt out. So I decided to go with the simplest shading that I could. I didn't even try to blend the lights or the shadows very much because I felt like I would have been spending too long on this. In total, this piece probably took me about an hour, which really surprised me. Now on to day 24, my least favorite prompt of the whole entire month. I really hate how stiff this looks. I try to give her a bit of perspective, like she's relaxing listening to music, but it just did not turn out well at all. She's stiff, the blending is really poor, the tail is really awkward, the bra is horrible. I think this piece just could have been so much better than it was if I just maybe used reference instead of trying to wing it on my own. It's definitely my least favorite piece of the month, and I'm just so happy I don't have to look at it again. Now, as a trend, usually when I make a really bad piece the day before, I feel really compelled to make something that actually looks nice and make myself realize that I actually can draw something that I like. So on day 25, the prompt was Cloud, and I really pushed myself to make sure she looked really cute and happy. I decided to go with a pajama looking top and some curly red hair. I thought I just really added a cute complementary color to her whole entire character. And then I spent a while rendering the cloud, and even though I could have done better on it, I still feel like it looks like a cloud, like she's sitting on this cloud looking at the sunset. I also like the pose I was able to come with. I actually sketched in my sketchbook a few poses that could have worked for this piece, and I'm really happy I did because I feel like it just came out really well. Now on to day 26, the prompt was Ice, and I had sketched a pose in my sketchbook the day before for this, so she didn't look as stiff as some of my other pieces. However, I still feel like she looks a little bit stiff and awkward in the final. I have a lot of things that I wish I could change about this piece, but one thing I think that came out pretty nice was the fur on the coat that I decided to go with, and the color scheme. I decided to go with the cold color scheme to go with the prompt. I just felt like it was really suiting the overall character in this way. Now, when I had gotten to day 26, I had decided that I didn't want to do the rest of the Chew BB's prompt on Instagram, so I decided to go with some Draw This in Your styles to finish off the month, because I really find that doing Draw This in your styles really adds a lot to your art. You learn a lot when you do it, and you also have an easier time creating a piece because the pose is already decided for you. So for day 27, I decided to do mark arts to Draw This in Your style for Mermay. I'll put the picture up in the corner so you can see the original piece, but I decided I really liked this piece because she had a red, yellow, and blue color scheme, and I thought it'd be really interesting to try and play with those colors in my own version of it. I really like how she designed the hair in her piece, and I also like how she designed the tail on her mermaid, so I decided to keep that when I was drawing my version of it. And I do feel like this mermaid came out a little bit stiffer than my art's version. I still like how it came out. I like how I drew the face and the hair, and overall I'm just really happy with going with a Draw This in Your style for the last couple of days of Mermay. Now, day 28, I decided to do Lavera Grace's Draw This in Your style for Mermay, and this is by far my favorite piece that I created the entire month. I just love the reds from the hair and the wood and on her skin, mixed beautifully next to the green tail and clothes that she has on. I also spent a little bit of extra time putting the lily pads on the water and making sure that I put water in the background to make it a full piece instead of just the character. So in particular, the thing that I'm most proud of this piece is that the profile looks like a very pretty face. I find that drawing people in profile can be very difficult for me sometimes, and I'm just really happy I was able to get it down in this piece. Now for day 29, I decided to do Liana Nikita's Draw This in Your style. I found that her version was really pretty and I wasn't able to recreate it the way that I wanted to, mainly because I was feeling kind of lazy that day, and also because I was running out of time. The original had such a nice soft color to it, but in my version I decided to amp up the saturation, which I'd been doing since I realized that I didn't like the grayness some of my older pieces in the month were doing. So I decided to amp up the saturation to make sure that it pops a little bit more, but in doing that I feel like I lost the softness that Elena had in the original. So on to number 30, I decided to do Kanto Girls Draw This in Your Style on Instagram. She had this lovely character named Soul, and she's a mermaid that loves sitting and sunbathing out. And in her original piece, she had said that she was tying up her hair so she can get ready to go sunbathe. And I thought that was such a cool and unique backstory that I just had to redraw it. So when I was recreating her piece, I made sure that I was going with a really yellow and red color scheme to keep with her original ideas. But I decided that I was going to add a little background because I felt like it was a little bit empty, and I used that shape to fill the space. I'm also really happy with how I was able to draw the hair. I made it look really nice and fluffy. And I also like how I painted the face because she looks really soft and pretty, which is what I was going for. Now on to day 31. This is one of my favorite pieces, probably my second favorite piece of the month, which is great because that means I improved drawing mermaids this month. And I decided to do this one particularly last because I thought it was the best Draw This in Your Style, which was LB Draws on Instagram. And it's definitely the best in terms of what I want to start creating in the future. I want to make some stuff that is more saturated and pretty than some of my other pieces that I did this month. So when I was creating this piece, I really focused in on the saturation and what colors she used for her skin and for the blues in the piece. I also tried to make her look really shiny, like she is made out of water, because she's supposed to be this water witch mermaid, which was really cute. And then to finish off the piece, I decided I was going to put on a pink polygon in the background just to tie everything together. I find that it looks kind of empty and unfinished when I just leave a white background behind the character. In the end, I am definitely not going to be doing this challenge next year. It took so much time for me. Like I said earlier, I definitely spent an average of 3 to 6 hours on each of these pieces, which is a huge chunk of time. But in saying that, I definitely think that if you're going to try this challenge, you should definitely try it because it taught me so many things. It taught me what I didn't like about my art. It taught me what I like about other people's art. I learned how to incorporate methods that I use in my art every single day now. I learned how to be more consistent, which was my goal when I came into this. I learned that I can push myself and make sure that I can reach a goal that I'd set for myself, and for that I'm really proud. Thanks for joining me on this little recap of Mermay and all the mermaids that I drew. What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Did you participate in Mermay? Please let me know in the comments, and if you found this video interesting, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.